Hello and welcome to our program Where God Weeps. Sri Lanka, the tear of India, an island which lies some 40 kilometers off the southeast coast of the Indian subcontinent. Many of us know Sri Lanka as a place of white beaches and resorts. But a cloud, a shadow lies over this island. For over 30 years, civil war has raged, claiming the lives of over 60,000 people. In April of 2003, a peace agreement was signed with a cessation of hostilities. In the summer of 2006, however, the army and the Tamil Tigers resumed fighting.
Like a vast emerald in a setting of waves, Sri Lanka attracts suitors both admiring and jealous. This island, just off the southernmost tip of India, has not been called the Tear of India in vain. The Tamils, originating from the Indian subcontinent, the country lying only 50 kilometers to the south, has always been a tempting lure. From ancient times, these invaders have become part of the island's mythology. First, settling in the north near Jaffna, the Tamils gradually forced the Sinhalese islanders further and further south. They imported not only Tamil culture, but also Hinduism to the predominantly Buddhist Sinhalese. Although a multiracial and multi-religious melting pot, the Tamils and Sinhalese managed to live together in relative peace. However, in 1956, the Sinhala-only law made Sinhalese the country's official language. In due course, Buddhism was adopted as the state religion. Conditions became insufferable for the Tamils. Over time, the situation deteriorated to a point where pent-up tensions could no longer be suppressed, and a civil war began in 1983. One of the most brutal civil wars in human history. The Tamil Tigers rejected mediation proposals, for they all maintained Sinhalese cultural, religious and linguistic dominance. Insurrection and guerrilla war followed, leading to the complete separation of the northern and eastern parts of the island from the rest of the country. The following 18 years saw over 100,000 people die, families lose homes, men and fathers, mothers lose children, some forced to join the Tamil Tigers at the age of 9. A team from the International Catholic Charity Aid to the Church in Need went out to witness firsthand the harsh realities that confront the population.
It's the first project trip to Sri Lanka. After the 20-year-long war, we are now there to see what the needs are and the situation, especially in the north.
We have been subjected to terrible trauma, and I must thank the priests and the religious who have been withstanding this in spite of the problem. Nobody ran away. Everybody stayed put in his parish.
Although many churches were destroyed, parishioners of this church no longer need umbrellas when attending Mass. Thanks to benefactors from Aid to the Church in Need, they have a new roof, but many Sri Lankans still have no place to worship in.
We have seen also the bad situation of all these estate workers, where the majority of the Catholic population is. These people are more or less kept as slaves, with no education, very, very bad living facilities, but quite strong in their faith. There is a need for building small substations, small chapels, so that they can gather together and pray.
We had a little pocket of Catholics in a place called Hulandawa. That's a tea growing area, and all these people were the Tamils, Indian Tamils, who were working in the tea plantations. And they had no chapel, so we wanted to build a little chapel so that they could go for Mass. And otherwise, we were saying Mass in little homes here and there. So we started building up a little chapel, and instigated by the Buddhist monks. At night they came and destroyed what we were building, completely razed to the ground. The second time also we built it up, and the second time also they destroyed it. We did not want to give up, so we started again the third time.
The construction of new churches is often accompanied by Buddhist protests, born of a fear at the high rate of conversions to the Catholic faith. Official sources indicate that every year over 20,000 Buddhists convert to Christianity.
It's not so bad, I should say, because Christianity is spreading, and there are people who want to become Christians, but we don't take them immediately, we discourage, because, the people are waiting also to, point an accusing finger at us. We discourage them and examine their motivation before we begin catechizing them.
Catechists volunteer their time to work in even the remotest villages. But there are areas where the church has to cope with great hostility, where a catechist or priest is rarely welcome. It is to these areas that lay missionaries go.
Lay missionaries are those whom we have sort of posted or planted in the villages, where we don't have a single Christian. So they have been there trying to catechize people, and through preschools also, they sort of live among the Buddhists and others and introduce Christ and the gospel.
The weapons and inhumanity of war have scarred no one more cruelly than children. They saw much, too much. They lost their parents and their homes. In this orphanage they try once more to learn the meaning of love. To many children, God's love is made known through the Bible. In this instance, an edition of the Child's Bible, adapted to local cultural traditions, is brought to them by Aid to the Church in Need.
the child's Bible was really a blessing to our diocese, because the children do not read the big Bible, you know. And with these pictures and so on, it is very attractive. And it is given in Sinhala and Tamil, because in my diocese I need both media. It is very much appreciated. And then the children, I find that the children share these stories, Bible stories, with non-Christian children. You see, they share these stories, and that goes a long way.
Almost 70% of Sri Lankans are Buddhist, speak Sinhalese and live in the southern part of the island. 15% are Tamil Hindus from the north, and although a minority, they are better educated than their fellow citizens in the south. The remaining minority population is made up of Muslims and Christians. Christians, mostly Catholic, uniquely amongst the religious communities, retain a very significant presence amongst both the Sinhalese and Tamil communities. Although a peace accord is in place, it remains tentative as tensions simmer. If the Catholic Church in Sri Lanka has survived through the atrocities of the war, it is due to the dedication of these women cloistered behind bars. At this Clarissan monastery, the sisters pray and work day and night for the realization of peace in their country, but there is still much to be done.
To tell us more about the situation, it's my pleasure and privilege to welcome Archbishop Oswold Gomis, the Archbishop of the capital, Columbo, Sri Lanka. Archbishop Gomis, thank you for being here with us today.
And thank you for your invitation.
To recap a little bit then, we have the Sinhalese Buddhist in the center of the island. We have Indians, Tamil
You're
Indians.
Right. Also, mostly Hindus.
Mostly Hindus living also in the center of the island came for the tea factories. And in the north of the island, the original Tamil...
North and the east.
And they are also Hindu?
Largely Hindu.
Largely Hindu. What happened in 1956 which provoked the original violence then?
You see, the British, after taking over the island in 1815 completely, got involved in the Second World War. And after the war, they granted independence to many countries around there in Asia. India got its independence in 1947 August, and we got our independence in 1948 February 4th. And after that, naturally, there was a resurgence of nationalism. And at the same time, there was also the Buddhist Jubilee year of 2500. And at that point, there was a resurgence of Buddhism, and the Buddhists felt that most of the plums of government office, as well as the best of education, was given to the minority communities because they were the people living in the maritime provinces. And having been under 3 colonial powers, they had better schools, better jobs, and this raised a lot of questions for the Buddhists.
So there was an inferiority complex which provoked this law, the Sinhala only law.
Yes. And this single only law was much more, in the background was economic reasons than cultural reasons. Because by bringing in single only as the law, as the language in the country, all those who were English educated were thrown out of office, or at least prevented from getting further into government office. Because the Tamils, I must admit, were very keen on education, and they, after Columbo, the highest percentage of schools per person is in the northern region. So they were well qualified, and they were controlling most of the departments of government, and the Buddhists did not want that to happen.
Now, in April of 2003, a peace agreement was signed and a cessation of hostilities. But as we know, in the summer of 2006, we start to see the hostilities rising again. Can one say that a full-scale civil war, that we are again on the brink of a full-scale civil war?
Yes. You see, after the peace agreement, there were peace talks, and not only after, but also before. But never did these peace talks succeed. They did not come to discuss the core problems, but always on some fringe problem, the peace talks broke down. So there was never determination, I would say, on both sides, and some flimsy reason, the peace talks ended. Now, up to this point, within the peace accord, people are frightened that the militant groups were building up their arms, weaponry, and their strength. There's a lot of people being recruited for the army, and child soldiers particularly. And so many people are questioning the honesty of the whole peace accord. And with the change of government now, the peace accord is virtually, peace agreement is virtually
not worth
null
the
and
paper.
void. In effect, it is not working. So the government still insists that it is keen on a political solution and trying to get as much consensus as possible in the southern sector to come to an agreement. Now, I must say this is very, very important. Until and unless on the southern side, at least the two major parties agree, you can never have a political solution to this problem. At least the two major parties must get together, and this as a church we have been insisting on. And this is what the president is now working up to. So their common agreement is scheduled to be out very soon, and we hope it will come soon.
The Apostolic Nuncio, Mario Zenari, Monsignor Mario Zenari, said at one point the conclusion of this war will only come about by the conversion of hearts, including the Christians.
Exactly.
What did he mean by this?
Because, you see, both in the south as well as in the north, there are still people who think that fighting will solve the problem. But the church does not believe that fighting will solve the problem, but we would rather, we have all the time been saying that we are for one country, but there must be equal opportunity, justice and fair play for all communities in the country. And for that, a certain amount of devolution of power from the center is essential. And I think that concept is being accepted now by many, including the government. And for that to come about, a political solution, people have to forget the past. If you go on raking the past all the time, there's injustice on all sides. And the greatest gift of Christianity and the greatest gift that Christ has shown us is forgiveness. forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. So unless people are prepared to forgive each other, we can have no solution.
But forgiveness does not exist in the Hindu tradition.
No, not in those traditions, because for them, well, if you do a crime, you have to pay for it.
In the karma of your next life.
That's right.
How do you negotiate with,
But still for all, there are the moderates. And when you talk of the moderates, they are a large portion of the population. You know, extremism is limited, but they are more vociferous and they're more active. Somebody said the greatest crime is the silence and the immobility of the moderates.
Of the majority.
Of the majority, that means. So, if we can really push the majority to move, and that is coming about now. There are a lot of civil organizations that are taking up the cause of peace, which thank God I hope will work. Then, you know, you can subdue the militants. But as you know, militants can be very powerful with their violence.
The Catholic Church plays a particular role because there are Catholics in both the Tamil and Sinhalese communities.
Sinhalese communities.
How important is the Catholic Church in this role of reconciliation?
In the Catholic Church, most of the people would be first Catholics, then they will look at the problem with a Catholic viewpoint. But I must confess, sadly though, that there are some people who not exercise their Christianity first, but think of other aspects of the problem before.
Their national interest.
Nationalism. We are strongly in love of our country, but certainly we are not extremists to say that nationalism is the only thing.
Sri Lanka also suffered the brutal force of the tsunami, which impacted heavily the eastern part of the island. Many people thought that the tsunami, in fact, would be a source of solidarity and reconciliation, but this has not proven to be the case. Why not?
In fact, the tsunami hit hardest on the eastern side, and it turned round the corner and came and hit the southern part of the island and the southwest part of the island, including a part of the Archdiocese, which is strictly in the western province. Now, at that moment, there was a great love and communion between all different groups. For instance, quite a number of our people in the southern part of our Archdiocese were given protection in the Buddhist temples. And so were many Buddhists helped in the Catholic churches, even in our distribution of emergency aid and so on. But that was unfortunately very short-lived. We were hoping that that would teach us a lesson, but it hasn't worked that far because politics being politics can't be washed out by a wave.
Archbishop Oswold Gomis, thank you for having been with us today, and thank you for sharing the most recent information about your country, Sri Lanka. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for having been with us today on our program. And if you would like to know how you can help Catholics in Sri Lanka, I would encourage you to look at the contact information posted at the end of this program. And we look forward to seeing you next time on Where God Weeps.